And I had to get comfortable with, I'm going to have to make a big investment that I'm uncomfortable with, but then that will then push me to expand, to figure out how to make that money, how to make it back. I still do that to this day. Hi, I'm Jacqueline Snyder, and this is the Product Boss Podcast. I've helped launch and grow thousands of product-based businesses, even one of my own. And over the last 20 years, I've seen behind the scenes of businesses just like yours. Whether they are makers, manufacturers, artists, or food and beverage businesses, I have spent so many hours studying it all. I've discovered what makes them successful. What are mistakes they could avoid? How did they turn an idea into successful business? And what are strategies they have used to make more sales and be discovered by more customers? This is what this show is all about. Whether you're just starting out or you're looking to become $1 million product boss, I'm here to give you the permission to chase your dreams, no matter how big or small. All you need is the right mindset, a little courage, strategy, and support, and you too can be the next $1 million product boss. Let's do this. Hey, product bosses, and welcome back to another episode. All right, so oftentimes I get asked about how I grew a multi-million dollar business in my 40s. And I say that because I think a lot of times when I think through the journey that I was on and the things that I thought were going to happen in my life and my business, I did the thing where I got married, I had kids, I had the business that I had, which was my consulting company where I helped over 2,000 fashion startup brands. I had launched one of my own, I had closed one of my own product businesses. And, I was 37 years old and thinking, okay, that's it. Like I've got my 2 kids, I've got my career, I've got my business. This is what it looks like. And then, the origin story is when I met Mina, who I co-founded the Product Boss with. Many of you know her. Many of you have heard episodes of the 2 of us. And you also know, if we skip forward about 6 years, that I ended up buying the business from Mina last year and going solo at the Product Boss. So all of these things that have happened over the last 7 years, I would have never, ever told you or planned out that this is what my life was going to look like when I was feeling like I was approaching 40. And this is like the thing that this is where I was. And, I had my 2 kids and I had my life. And then everything changed. And then everything changed again. And then it keeps changing. And, I think when I look back and I reflect in terms of what has happened over, I started my first business in 2007. So I'm getting pretty close to 20 years of being an entrepreneur and business owner. I know. I'm only 25. I know. No. Just kidding. But you know what I'm saying? Like I look back and I'm like, wow, like I don't know how I got here and how I've gone through so many iterations of starting businesses, closing businesses, buying businesses, becoming an investor in other product-based businesses, and just kind of this journey forward. And I know it's not stopping here and I know where it's going to go. Hey, Product Boss. So when it comes to running a product-based business and wearing all of the hats, one of the most important hats you wear is ensuring your customers' happiness. When your customers are happy, they will keep coming back for more and more products, which is exactly what you want. However, sometimes it can seem difficult to keep up with all of the customer support emails. I totally get it, but don't worry because that's where HubSpot's all-new Service Hub comes in. It brings service and success together on one powerful platform for the first time ever through using an AI-powered help desk and AI chatbot. With HubSpot's all-new Service Hub, you can meet your customers where they are, especially as you continue to grow and scale your product biz. Visit HubSpot.com/service to learn how this all-new solution can help you better meet your customers' needs. Really, the thing I wanted to talk about was where the biggest change happened for me. And that was a decade into being an entrepreneur and owning my own business. So the biggest change that happened, and that was about 10 years into business. I had never listened to a podcast. I didn't even know what podcasts were. They were newer, and I think people were listening to certain types of podcasts. But for me, I didn't know that there were business podcasts out there. I didn't know about online business coaches. Now, while I was a consultant and I worked with people in person in LA, or they would fly in and work with me, or I would fly to them and work with them, I didn't know about, digital courses and online masterminds and group coaching programs. Like just, I wasn't in that world yet. And honestly, the world was smaller then. I remember, Tony Robbins was like the guy who was doing stuff online. Like there weren't always the things. And, I discovered people like Marie Forleo back in, I think it was like 2013, 2014. I was probably one of her first B school students, to be honest. And I'd already had my business started. So, that program for me, like I got into, I learned a couple of things, but I'm a service business. So don't forget that part either. I got in from the service and coaching part of it all. And so a decade into my business, I discover a podcast. I find a coach. So I started listening to the Biz Chicks podcast. Like I said, I had an agency model and I found Natalie Ekdahl and I reached out to her and I said, "Oh my goodness, like, I love the podcast. It feels like you're speaking to me, all of my pain points." I loved all the things that she said in there. And then I asked, "Do you coach people one-on-one?" Because I needed access. I was like, "You're so smart. I hear you on this podcast. You seem like you have all the answers to all my problems." I remember going back to my husband and being like, "Oh my goodness, she was amazing. I want to work with her, but I don't think I can afford many more one-on-one sessions with her. I don't know what to do." But I also don't know what to do because if I don't work with her, I feel like I'm in this catch 22 of, is that right? I don't know. But I feel like, okay, if I work with her, she can help me solve my problems and get out of debt and grow my business and be more profitable. If I don't work with her because I can't afford her, that was the story I was telling myself. I can't afford her. I'm just going to kind of stay stuck. And I think that happens a lot for a lot of people, a lot of you out there listening, the idea of we kind of stay stuck because we have these stories we're telling ourselves that we can't afford something, we can't do something, maybe we can just figure it out on our own. A lot of times money gets in the way. And that reason is that we have these old stories playing in our head. And I had to take a step back and think to myself, like, how is that serving me? Like, if I keep thinking that things are too expensive, they will always be too expensive. But if I push myself past the edge of comfort and say, okay, if I am able to figure out how to pay to work with this person, do I believe that if I work with this person, she will then help me 2x, 3x, 10x, 20x my revenue? And I had to get comfortable with, I'm going to have to make a big investment that I'm uncomfortable with, but then that will then push me to expand, to figure out how to make that money, how to make it back. I still do that to this day. I have a coach now that I pay so much money to for 3 months of working with her. And what's crazy is the amount I paid her was an amount I actually saved on something else. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the universe, if you want to get woo, the universe just kind of made this money appear, which was the exact amount that I was afraid to pay her. I had that same conversation with my husband. He goes, "Excuse me, what?" And I was like, "But she's going to help me. She's going to help me to get to that next level, And he's like, "Okay, you can invest." I didn't need his permission. I just needed to run it by him. And he was like, "All right, I support you," really is where the conversation went. So, I think that was one of the first things that I did. That was the first step in the secret of how I went from being $50,000 in debt to now, just a few years later, having a business that has generated over $10 million in revenue over the years, right? And from what I've learned, I've been able to help my students, my clients, my masterminders do the same thing. So I wanted to talk about what I've done in my life and in my business, if this can impact you in any sort of way, is like modeling it for you so that you can push past those growth edges for yourself as well. Because wherever you are now, I promise you, my friend, you are not alone. You are not stuck here forever. This is not a forever. So you're not stuck here forever. And in fact, what we think we know and what we think we know is going to happen next is actually only based on the history in which we've come through, right? We don't know what the next step is. We don't know what's going to happen. We just know historically what has happened to us. And then we try and take that information, put it forward and say, this is how it's going to be. So at that point, I could have thought, it's hard running this business. Having all these employees is tough. I don't know how I'm ever going to like break past my $500,000 revenue. I'm not a good boss. I don't know if I have enough time for like my kids. There's all this stuff because I just didn't know what to do next. And so this is something that I have taught our masterminders. And I wanted to share it with you here too, if this is helpful to you, because I think it's really important to think about and know what I've done to move forward. Now, here's something I want you to know. Now more than ever, having a successful, profitable business that can create financial and time freedom for you will allow for your greater control of your life. Okay? And that is so important to me. The profitable business, having that financial and time freedom, having control over my life. Because remember, I'm married to an actor who would travel all the time, all the places, and I always had to kind of go on the road and go where he was. So, the number one thing that helped me create that profit, that security, and the freedom for me to spend more time with my family, with those people that I love, and doing the things that I love was that I ended up getting mentorship and joining a supportive group. Really, what this means is that I just decided I was never going to do business alone again. And this does not mean partner or no partner. This means I'm never going to do it alone again. I'm going to have a group of people around me that have the same goals that I have, that maybe even have bigger goals than I could have ever imagined, that are going to push me, that are going to hold me accountable, that are going to show me what's possible. And then I'm going to always have mentors to help me get there. And so I bring all of this up because that is my origin story. That's sort of how I started. That's how I found out about podcasts. That's how I found out about coaching. And if you're wondering, like, okay, well, Jacqueline, were you able to afford working with this coach, working with Natalie? I went back to her after my husband was like, well, go to her and see how else you can work with her. And at that point, she said, actually, I'm starting a mastermind for six-figure women entrepreneurs. It wasn't product or service specific. It was just for women entrepreneurs. And she said, that is a way that you can work with me. You join this mastermind. It's a small group of people. You'll have me as your mentor. You'll have this group of women to support you. And we're going to meet and we're going to do hot seats where, you bring a big question to the group and the group gives you feedback and I give you feedback. And you're just going to have access to more things. And you're just never going to feel alone again. So I said, awesome. Sign me up. So I did. I signed up. And joined my very, very, very first mastermind. This is actually pre the Product Boss ever starting. This was with my previous business. And I've been in a mastermind every year since. In fact, sometimes I'm in a couple masterminds. It feels like several, but I'm in a couple because I'm in a couple different groups for different things that I need. One I'm in for being around other moms that are entrepreneurs. That is a big mixed group of different types of businesses. And then there's one I'm in that's in a group that's very specific to the kind of business that I have. And now I've been in other masterminds that didn't feel like they were the right fit for me. And that's because they weren't in the same industry that I was in. It doesn't mean that they need to have the same customers. They just couldn't speak the same language that I could when it came to talking about the kind of business that I run. And I think that's what's so important, that if you ever are looking for a group to join or a mastermind to join or anything that you're looking at, one, you find a mentor that has done what you're looking to do, that has experience in what you're doing, and that has curated a group together that is powerful for a common goal, a common reason, a common theme. The Product Boss started as a mastermind. That's it. That's what we started with. Before we even had a podcast, we were a mastermind company. We had a podcast, and then for 2 years, we only ran masterminds. And that was before we'd ever launch any sort of online course, program, any other way of doing it. So this is really like the thing that happened and helped me. In sharing this with you and joining her mastermind, the thing that I discovered was that I felt so stuck on what to do next. Do you ever feel that way? I always wished I had someone to guide me. I wished I had someone to mentor me. And I wished I had people at the same level that were actually sharing with me what worked and what didn't, and even resources, right? Like, hey, I need an attorney for this, or what app can I use for my website? What tracking software do you use for this? In my inner circle mastermind, the conversations that are coming up are like, we talked about upsells and cross sells and everyone sharing their favorite Shopify app, for example, or one of our masterminders is working on getting onto Amazon. And then another masterminder has crushed it, making over $1 million on Amazon. And so she's actually helping her through it. Someone else was hiring an ad agency and they needed feedback on like the right ad agency. Or I'm running my own ads, and then another masterminder helped her through that. One big connection that just happened is my masterminder, who's making a ton of money on Amazon, wants to transition and start her own direct-to-consumer website. But her direct-to-consumer website is not converting. So she paired up with another one of our masterminders that just like crushes it in direct to consumer. They connected and she said, let me make an introduction to my web designer, my web developer. And they're doing such a great job. And these are my conversions. So it's all these conversations that they're having that I had that really kind of like, again, got me unstuck. I realized that I was in the right place because I also found out that all of the people that I looked up to that were doing big things, that were changing their lives financially with time freedom, that were impacting the world, they were also doing this, right? And I'm going to share with you what they were doing in just a couple of minutes. And so, like I said, I've been in these groups for the past 8 years, and there's all these different approaches. And the way that I've refined it and done this I've been in so many programs, I've been in so many masterminds, I've run so many masterminds that I've really kind of like defined it into this framework that I want to share with you. And it is the proven path to $1 million. And what I believe the only way to grow a successful, profitable, stable, and joy-filled business in any economy without hitting burnout or feeling isolated, right, is through these 3 pillars that I came up with, which is mentorship, community, and expansion. Hey, Product Boss. Okay, it's podcast recommendation time, which is my favorite time because this month I'm all about listening to Business Made Simple, hosted by one of my mentors and friends, Donald Miller, which is brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. Each week, Don takes the mystery out of growing your business with easy to implement actionable steps to help your marketing feel easier and smoother. It's game changing, so be sure to tune in. This is one of those podcasts I never, ever miss. So listen to Business Made Simple wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, Product Boss. So if you are a 6-figure, multi-6-figure, on your way to 7 figures, or even cross that 7-figure mark, Product Boss, ears up. Now, listen, I was recently in a session with one of my masterminders in the inner circle, which is Julie, and she said, Jacqueline, I literally feel like I am building a castle on top of IKEA furniture. And I added that IKEA furniture has a few leftover screws that you don't know where they go, right? It's this thing where you're building something amazing and beautiful, but you're so afraid that at any moment it could all come crashing down. And that's because a lot of times as we're learning, as we've crossed that 6-figure mark, we've hit multi-6, we're heading to 7 or even crossed 7, we're still just figuring it out, right? We're still figuring out how to do this, how to scale the business, how to grow a team, how to be with our families and spend time doing the things we love, how to manage these amazing opportunities that come our way, how to keep leaping and growing. But the thing is that you can't expect us to know this and do this all on our own. People aren't meant to do this. And I'll tell you, the biggest shift and change that I ever had in my business was a decade into running my business by myself, alone, complaining to my husband, and he could not help me. And then I found a coach who told me she had a mastermind, and I joined it. And finally, I felt like I could breathe. I felt like all that pressure was off of my chest. And I was like, finally, people I can talk to who just get it and who just get me. So if you have crossed that 6-figure mark, if you're in the 6 figures, multi-6, 7-figure business, and you are looking for that relief and that support and that strategy and to be surrounded by other product people doing the same thing that you want to do and going in the same direction, then I invite you to join me inside of the Inner Circle Mastermind. Yep, this is my Inner Circle Mastermind. It's the thing I love so much in this business. I've been doing it for the past 7 years, working closely with those of you inside of my masterminds. And so this is for you if any of this has applied. And I'd love to see your application come through. So right now we're taking applications for a limited time. Once the spots fill up, they're full and you'll have to wait for someone to drop out or for another cohort to come up. So if you are interested in enrolling, all you have to do is head to theproductbossmastermind.com, get that application done. It takes just about 5 minutes, and then I will review it. My team will review it, and then we cannot wait to get back to you and see you join us inside. So now back to the show. So if you want to know how I went from 50 grand in debt to a business that's generated multiple millions a year, it was through mentorship, community, and expansion. All right, so let's kind of break them down for you here. So let's talk about what mentorship is. So mentorship is when you get to learn specific strategies for your business. It helps you avoid mistakes, or it fast tracks you to a result you're looking for. And it helps you become a little bit more brave in making your business better. Because for me, when I work with a mentor, it helps me make smart choices that I'm growing my business confidently, right? Mentors will have feedback or experience or information from other things that are working, and they can just kind of like, get you there so much faster. And so mentorship was like, I experienced that on my first call with my coach. I experienced it week over week in the mastermind. I've experienced it through all of the mentors that I've ever hired, as well as the groups I've been a part of. Because when I've decided to join masterminds, I thought to myself, do I want to learn from the person who's facilitating the program? What are they doing that I want to do? Or what have they experienced? Or what information do they have that would be beneficial to me? And do I align with them, right? In terms of values and goals and all the things. So mentorship is huge. So the second thing is community, right? Because I believe that community took me from feeling so alone. I'm telling you, a decade of aloneness. I know you feel this way too. A decade of me going to my boyfriend that eventually turned into my husband and complaining about work and team and delays in shipping and, production issues and quality control issues. I mean, all of it, all of it. Staying late at the office because I had to cut something. I had to cut fabric myself and get it in time to get it shipped out. All of this stuff. I'd come back and I'd complain to him. And he would just kind of say, well, to fix it, all he thought was well, then why don't you go get a real job? And it's like, no, you're not getting the point. And then the other people that were in my community were either my neighbors in my building, because I had an office in a building, that we would run into each other and be like, hey, how are you? But no one was willing to kind of share their sources of stuff, because if they had a sewer or cutter or supplier for, some raw goods that I needed, maybe raw goods they would give us, but it was only if it was elastic or zippers. It was never something that was really crucial to their business, because they were like, well, I'm not going to give you the place I get my fabric prints because I want my fabric prints to myself kind of thing. So there was a little bit of that. When we had huge wins or something amazing happened, that I could pop into the hallway and knock on my neighbor's door and be like, oh my God, we just landed, like an account with everything but water. No, you know, and or, oh my God, we just lost something big or something problematic happened. And they were also not the person to go to for that. And I had colleagues of people that I worked with in different ways, but again, none of that. So for me, community was huge, huge for me. And I got that through these curated groups of people that were curated together at the same level, in the same type of business. But here's the kicker: when you get into community, it's really important that they have diverse experiences, but similar goals. That is why so many masterminds have applications that go with it. And for us too, we need to make sure that it's the right fit. We ask very specific questions on deciding if that person will fit well into this group that we're curating and creating. Do they have similar goals? Do they want to burn their business down? If they want to burn their business down, that's not the energy we need in a mastermind, for example. That's more of a coaching person, coaching one-on-one, let's get you out of burning your business down, versus, hey, I want to grow. I want to get to that next level. I want to give and I want to get, all of it, right? Because in community, this is where people share their ideas, and they have really, really smart ideas. They help each other stay on track. That's really great for people. It brings in different viewpoints, things we haven't even considered. And it's a place where everyone feels supported. And in fact, the very first mastermind that I was ever in, I'm still friends with a few of the people that I was in that group with. One of them I love so much. And I still talk to my mentor, Natalie Ekdahl. Now we're friends. And then my other friend, she has a hiring company and she helps me hire people for the team. And she actually works with some really, really, really big names out there, right? And we were kind of coming up together. And so still she'll check in on me. Last year when I bought the business, she was checking in on me and she was making sure hey, do you need anything? How can I support you? And this was all post being in a mastermind together. These are people that you just go through it with each other, and you find a few people and you love them and they love you. And then it's just you've added a jewel to your jewel box. They're just incredible humans that I think that's the other great thing about being in a mastermind. I find new people that I absolutely love and cherish, and they become really good friends because it's very lonely. It's very lonely. And the reason they're good friends is they also understand everything we've done to get here, the good and the bad and the ugly. And so they're really great to be supportive as well. Okay. And then the last thing that I find to be really important, and this is in my pillars of the proven path to $1 million and what has helped me get to generating over $10 million in revenue in my businesses over the last few years, is expansion. This is so important. This is probably why you love listening to podcasts, why maybe you attend live events. Maybe you don't do these things and you feel like you need a little bit more of it. But the reason why I love like a curated group, like a mentor with a curated group and a community that's smaller than some of these bigger online communities, is that the expansion like allows us to expand our ideas and think bigger, and the expansion to, develop growth tactics for our business, things like we couldn't even figure out, or to leverage opportunities that bring us closer to our goals. And I think that expansion is so critical to our long-term success. And it kind of is like what I talked about in the beginning, because it pushes our boundaries beyond our comfort zone. It is very easy to stay small and keep playing small. It is so easy to actually stay in discomfort more than it is to go into the unknown. Because we know what discomfort feels like. We know what lonely feels like. We know what feeling broke feels like. We know what being in debt feels like. We know what all of that stuff feels like. The part that's scary is the unknown. But when we can push ourselves past that comfort zone, that is when we start to see our businesses evolve, because we start to evolve. This is the biggest, most crucial, most amazing thing that I have ever done, was continue to push my expansion to the point that I recently took my husband to one of the masterminds that I'm a part of. And I said, can he come with me now that I own the business fully? Like, it's our family business. So he has to be more involved. And so they said, sure, he can come. It's a very family oriented group. And I was so glad that he was there, and he expanded, like his brain just shifted afterwards. And I was like, babe, this is what I get. Like when I go to these masterminds, when I go to these events, when I take these calls, you have no idea that the stuff that I'm learning or expanding or thinking bigger, because I'm seeing other people do it, or these discussions that we're having. And it's amazing. And I was like, but every time I came back, I used to feel like, he's not taking these leaps forward in beliefs or thinking bigger, and I am. And I would try and explain it all to him. So it's been this really great thing. And, in my mastermind, a lot of times there's husband wife couples that join, there's partners that join. But the thing is it first starts with you, because if you're the business owner, you have to start to expand and think bigger. And then you get to take your partner along on the ride with you, right? Whether or not they're in the mastermind or not. But just watching him have like one mastermind experience in person and what changed for him, it was really cool. It was kind of like, I'm trying to think of like a mom analogy. Like when you watch a kid taste something for the first time, like a lemon, a young child tasting a lemon for the first time, and you see their face like react to the tart, and they like their face, changes, and you're like, us, we don't really notice that anymore the more you've tasted a lemon. But the very first time you taste a lemon, like you can actually see that change. I've watched my kids do that the first time they ever had Coke, and their brains went cuckoo. So this one mastermind that I'm in, that's very like family focused, and it's really expansive, and it's with a New York Times bestseller, and it's just like an incredible thing for people with like multi-7, multi-8 figure businesses. He came and he was surrounded by these people, that there were people that were like kind of in the industry that he was, and they started kind of going back and forth on ideas. He was with this New York Times bestseller who also had other amazing New York Times bestsellers come speak, because this is a mastermind that I'm in for book writing and things like that. And he was just blown away. And it was cool to watch. It was cool to watch these pillars of mentorship, community, and expansion all happen for my husband over the course of 3 days, and then to see that. And so seeing that for me, it was like, oh, yeah, this makes so much sense. Like, this is why it's been so impactful for me. This is why it's so impactful for other people. This is why it's been so impactful for the masterminders that I work with in our inner circle mastermind. It's just the big why. So I wanted to share this for you and with you, because as you are growing your business, if you want to get this to that next level that you're hoping to get it to, you really have to think to yourself, am I getting the things that I need to get past this point, like that growth edge? Because if you're not, or you feel stuck, or you feel like you hit a plateau, or you don't know what else to do, you can figure it out on your own, I'm sure, to a point, but it's going to take you longer. And time is costly, because money gets burnt while it takes too long to do things. We have limited time, we have limited resources. And so it's like, how do you fast track and speed this up, if that makes any sense? I hope it does. So as you're thinking through this, I'd love for you to, just make sure that you are constantly feeling like you have mentorship, that you have community, and then you have expansion. And one of the coolest things that I figured out while I was kind of researching masterminds and things like that was like, there is this mastermind from back in the day that was community of geniuses, and it was called the Uncommon Friends Mastermind. And in the Uncommon Friends Mastermind, these were the masterminders: Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Harvey Firestone, Charles Lindbergh, and Dr. Alexis Carrel. Okay. They were all separate geniuses and kind of product bosses on their own, individuals. They were titans of commerce and invention. And they had this group that they would meet. That's why they call themselves the Uncommon Friends Mastermind. And there's this really cool picture I found on the internet of all of them in black and white, like sitting outside looking like, they've just enjoyed a really cool day of just resourcing each other, being in community, kind of mentoring each other and expanding. And so I want to wrap it with that because I wish this for you as well. If you are someone that is making 6 figures and beyond, 6 figures to 7 figures, and you're looking for a mastermind that's specific for product-based businesses, we do have our Inner Circle Mastermind. It's theproductbossmastermind.com. I'll drop a link into the show notes if that's helpful to you, because we are always accepting applications and we are going to be filling up spots for the next 6 months. All right, so I will see you in the next episode. Thanks, friends. Thank you for being here and listening all the way through the Product Boss podcast. If you love our show and it has helped you in any way in your business, would you mind doing 2 things for us? Subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review. Reviews help other product entrepreneurs know that this is the place to be to grow their businesses and realize that they're not alone. And we know that you all know that a 5-star and honest review helps you sell more products to more people. So you know that your reviews help us reach more listeners around the world. Remember, what we give is what we receive, and we are all about helping each other in the Product Boss community. We are all in this together. We would be so appreciative of you if you could take the time right now to subscribe, leave a review, and even share this episode on social or someone you know so we can impact more lives. And remember, subscribing means that you will get notified each time we release a new episode so you never miss a thing. You have helped us grow and climb into the top 10 of all marketing podcasts, and together we can keep climbing. Thank you, friends. And remember, there is room at the top for all of us.